This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to the 2019 eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series Draft, as we get set to welcome 12 new teams into the longest-running official esports racing series, which debuted 10 years ago and enters an all-new era here in 2019. We'll talk plenty about that and more as we work through the 24 picks on the draft board tonight over the course of the next 45 minutes or so. But first, we want to welcome you all tuning in to the iRacing Esports Network alongside myself, Evan Posocco. I'm joined by Randy Chenowth. And Randy, Daytona just under 2 weeks away. The anticipation is certainly growing day by day, but tonight is a big step forward.
Yeah, I think everyone's really excited to see those new 12 teams that you see on the screen take part in all the action of the season opener of Daytona. And what better way to kick off a season 10 years in, 10 times its prize pool with 12 new teams, a lot of new, probably, let's say, alliances going to be going into this season, and all these drivers you see on screen. Not all of them will be drafted tonight. 24 of them will be very happy and $500 richer.
And certainly a $500 bonus going to go to every driver that gets selected. So one of the biggest changes we're going to see this season is the prize pool. So $500 per 24 drivers. That is $12,000 here tonight alone in signing bonuses for the drivers that get drafted. Well, in years past, the total purse was $10,000. So not only are we upping it at for this specifically tonight only, but the overall championship prize now pays out $100,000 for 2019. So certainly it is a big step forwards for this series as we celebrate our 10th year of competition. And you take another look at the list of the teams that are going to be picking here at round number one. It is a combination of both motorsports organizations like the Wood Brothers Racing with the number one pick and professional esports team. You see Flipside Tactics right there as well with the number two pick that are going to be fielding cars in this eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing series. There are 12 picks per round. Round two, though, Randy, going to be a flip. So Wood Brothers gets number one. They're going to be number 24 overall. So Flipside Tactics picks second in the first round. They will go second to last in the second round. So there is certainly a benefit of having maybe one of those top 5 picks, but don't keep an eye out for somebody like a Roush Fenway Racing, a Clint Boyer Racing may have 2 solid picks, saying having a 10th overall pick, and then just immediately after they were going to select, say, a 15th overall pick or so. So it's certainly going to be interesting to watch as we go into this. 40 drivers on the board. You take a look at all those names again now.
And that's going to be, like I said, the interesting thing about this format is how are these teams really going to try to structure the actual lineups they put together? Because while Wood Brothers gets the advantage of the first pick, and probably a couple names that I think for everyone is going to flop to the top, float right up to the top of the list, Ray Alfalla and then Ryan Michael Luza. I think everyone is expecting to go 1 and 2 in that order. But when you look at those teams like you said, Roush Fenway, Richmond Raceway Esports, and Renegades, them going 1, 2, 3 in the second round, they get a very, very quick opportunity to pick their roster up and actually have a very solid 2-team roster with almost back-to-back picks. It's going to be interesting to see how that pans out, not only in this draft here tonight, but through the season once we get to Daytona.
We'll reference the draft board as the night goes on, let you know who the best available still are around, but I certainly think if you look at the top there, Ray Alfalla, Ryan Luza, Michael Conti, Bobby Zelensky would not at all be surprised if that is the order that they go in the open round. In fact, those are the drivers based on the power rankings that I have as my 1, 2, 3, and 4 best available. We're getting set to get this eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series draft underway, so we'll pass things off to the president of iRacing.com, Tony Gardner, to get us kicked off.
Thanks, Evan. We're really excited about the year. Tony Gardner here, president of iRacing. thanks to the teams and the drivers for participating in the series. I just want to officially declare the 2019 eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series Draft is now officially open.
So just like that, we are off and away, and Wood Brothers Racing goes on the board. They will select first overall in the draft, and you have to think that the four-time champion is going to be at the top of the list. We'll see how long they take.
I think that's what everyone's expecting. I think it'd be a shock. As good as Ryan Luza is, it'd be an absolute shock if Ray Alfalla doesn't find his way onto Wood Brothers Racing here and win this first pick. So as we just watch that timer slowly count down, I don't think it's going to take long for these guys. Probably one of the easiest draft picks that there's ever been, and look at that, we've got it.
They're going to be rocking a sporty paint scheme and an iconic one in 2019. Let's see who Wood Brothers Racing chooses first overall.
With the first pick of the draft, Wood Brothers Racing selects Ray Alfalla.
So no surprise there. It is the driver out of Cape Coral, Florida that goes number one. Ray Alfalla going to be going with the Wood Brothers in 2019. Four-time series champion, Randy. 2 wins last year. That's a down year for him. That's the lowest for him in a year since 2010. Still won the championship. A 4-time champion, 24-time race winner. Both of those best in the series.
It's always nice to come off a down year with a season championship, isn't it? I mean, like you said, Ray Alfalla was expected to go number one. We saw 30 seconds get burned off the clock before that came in. I think that was more or less them just being like, oh, clock has started. Make sure you tell them we're picking Ray. Okay, who are we going to pick towards the end of this second round? But Ray Alfalla, easily the clear first pick. And with him, of course, being a Ford man, I think he's going to be very happy driving at a team like Wood Brothers Racing with the sort of history they have with that brand. And Flipside, their pick's already in for number 2.
I think they had to expect that Alfalla was going to be gone at number 1, so Flipside Tactics probably had a pretty good idea of who they were going to be. Let's see who they pick.
Hi everyone, this is Kevin Bobbitt from iRacing. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications. With the second pick, Flipside Tactics takes Ryan Luza.
So it is Ryan Michael Luza who goes number 2 out of Cypress, Texas. 2 years in the eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series, a championship in 2017, and a part of an incredible battle for the title we saw this year. Career low for him, 2 of the points. He was second in the power rankings, and he does go second in the draft. No surprise, Luza off the board quick as well.
And that's not a surprise whatsoever. I think everyone had Ray going 1, Luza going 2. This is probably when things start getting really interesting, when you start thinking about people's projections. I think there's about 5 or 6 good drivers you could really rationalize into this number 3 spot, depending on their stats. And if that's how you purely go off of it, as we see Junior Motorsports, they're going to be up on the clock, and well, they got a quick decision too.
Pretty quick as well. We'll see what the pick is going to be. Junior Motorsports with the 3rd pick overall.
With the 3rd pick of the draft, Junior Motorsports selects Michael Conti.
It is the 2014 Series champion who goes number 3. And I think no surprise there either. You could question that maybe you bounce around between the Boosas, the Ottingers, and Zelenskis, but Mike Conti comes in 3rd in the power rankings. He goes 3rd. He sticks with the Junior Motorsports camp. The driver, obviously, with connections to the folks over at Hendrick. We've seen those folks have watch parties for him throughout the years. So a Series champion is going to be headed to Junior Motorsports as the 3rd pick.
Definitely makes a lot of sense for those reasons like you just said. I think there's a lot of other picks that I think in terms of performance on track might rate closely to Michael, of course, especially these last handful of years. But I have to say, late in that 2018 season, that entire group was incredibly impressive. Kind of a slow start, but things really did pick up towards the end of the year for them. Now this is where I think things start getting a little bit dicier, though, Evan, because there's a lot of names that I wouldn't say are borderline, but maybe a little bit more difficult in terms of picking who you go with. Do you go with the Logan Clampett? You got Keegan Lahey still on the board, Bobby Zelensky, Nick Ottinger, Matt Busa, Schoenberg. There's a lot of drivers left in these top 10 that are very, very solid picks that are very marginal in terms of who I think you actually decide and why you end up picking them up.
And with G2 Esports on the board, also one of the esports teams that is competing in this 2019 season, Interesting to see if they go strictly analytics, not being a team directly involved in the NASCAR circle for maybe as long as some of the other teams. You take a look at the preview of what we're going to be seeing on this 2019 campaign. Regular season gets kicked off February the 12th at Daytona. We run all the way to Homestead at the end of the playoffs, October the 8th. Big notes to note for the season. Talladega returns to the schedule for the first time since 2013, as does Bristol for the first time since 2011, and Kentucky for the first time since 2016. ISM and Phoenix, New Hampshire, Atlanta, and Dover are tracks that you do not see on this 2019 schedule that you did have just last year in 2018. So some things to keep in mind. My mock draft, I had somebody like a Bobby Zalenski ranked at number 4, but as you mentioned, it could be tight with the Ottingers, the Boosas, and the Sheltons. So this team taking a little bit more time, having known that 1, 2, and 3 are gone, maybe hoping that one of those drivers would have been available. They are not, but G2 Esports has made their pick.
This is Otto Zabini, iRacing Director of Sales and Marketing. With the 4th pick, G2 Esports picks Keegan Lahey.
So Keegan Lahey with a little bit of a bump. G2 Esports selects him 4th overall. The driver with 3 wins in his rookie campaign and finished 7th in the 2018 standings. It is Lahey going number 4 overall, and he was 7th in the power rankings, so that is a little bit of a jump, and maybe the first pick so far this evening that strays from the path.
Maybe just a little bit, but like you said, he's still a very, very good option. We saw him in 2018. 3 wins. A couple of other races I think potentially got away from him. Now that we start looking towards this next choice, though, still a lot of these things, some of these teams maybe really dipping their toe in the sim racing water a little bit for the first time. What are they really going to be deciding? You have, of course, very wide fluctuations in I ratings in this series. Some of the drivers in the upper 5900s. All the way up to the 9,000s for some of the guys that have been doing this thing for a while. So I'm sure that a lot of stats that these teams are really taking into account, Evan, that, maybe a little bit of overwhelming for some of these guys on the first time. But overall, I don't think there's anything too crazy with these first 4 picks.
And you see Joe Gibbs Racing now on the clock, a team that has been very involved on the iRacing side of things, lending their drivers in things like the Pro Invitational Series, and the Joe Gibbs Racing pick is in.
With the 5th pick of the draft, Joe Gibbs Racing selects Bobby Zalenski.
The 3-time race winner, Bobby Zalenski, is going to be driving with Joe Gibbs Racing in 2019. 5th overall pick in the 2019 draft. Zalenski was 6th in the points last season. So it is a good pickup for him. Notably, as you take a look at the stats, he was 4th in the power rankings, so 1 spot later than what the power rankings would have suggested or predicted. Over 9,000 I rated. Obviously, one of the best drivers out there, Andy. The one thing I do find interesting, Matt Busa, 4th, Nick Ottinger, 5th. Both higher than him in the points. In fact, both higher than he and Lahey in the 2018 points. Those 2 drivers still on the board with 5 picks down.
You're definitely right. Still a lot of drivers with these power rankings that are still, yet to get picked up, and like you said, those couple of drivers that are above, a couple of the ones we've seen get taken, still out there. I will say, one of the picks that I'm a little bit surprised maybe didn't get picked up as early. I think a future talent and probably a future champion in this series, Logan Clampett. I think he's a driver that has a lot of value that comes off the stat sheet. Of course, a large group of fans that always tune into every single race. Clampett Nation is 100% in effect every other Tuesday we do this championship. I think he's someone who makes a lot of sense, things that aren't totally in the stats in terms of picking him up as Williams Esports gets their pick in.
With the 6th pick of the draft, Williams Esports takes Matt Busa.
So it is Matt Busa who is selected by Williams Esports, goes 6th overall with his first career win last season and a career best performance of 4th in the points. Of course, we mentioned that. I had him 7th on my draft list. He goes number 6 and is headed to Williams Esports, and a jump for his power ranking list of a P8.
I had him actually going 8th as well, is sort of what I kind of predicted. Still well within, I think, the realm of where we'd expected someone like Matt to go. Very good, solid pick coming out of Williams Esports, I think, from this group.
So you look at some of the top drivers left. Nick Ottinger, 5th at points. I had him 5 on my draft board. He is still available as Burton Kligerman Esports goes now on the 5-minute clock. I also had a Logan Clampett going 6th. We're now at pick number 7. So a couple of drivers starting to muddy the waters, but a new team, Burton Kligerman Esports. Obviously, Parker Kligerman, very familiar with the iRacing surface and his duties with NBC. Their pick is in. They only needed a minute. Let's see if they got the driver they wanted.
With the 7th pick of the draft, Burton Kligerman Esports selects Logan Clampett.
So Clamp Nation comes off the board. Logan Clampett going to be driving for Burton Kligerman Esports, the number 7 pick. He stays in a Toyota, and he comes off the board maybe a little bit later than we would have thought. I think that's a great pickup for that team.
Definitely, as Logan has all the talent I think that is required to end up actually picking up a championship in this series. We saw him last year overall run decently well. There was just a few times in the year that some odd decision making, instead of trying to settle for maybe a solid 10th place or top 10 or top 5 finish, really trying to putting his neck out there going for a win, ended up not working out, and it really hurt him, and you see him kind of miss out on the playoffs towards the end of last season. Here, I think as long as he maybe steps up and makes some better decisions in some of those situations, I think you easily have someone who's going to go into Homestead pretty consistently every year as a potential champion in this championship.
Logan's looking to pick up, finished 2nd in 2017, 9th last year in 2018. Another quick pick for JTG Doherty Racing as their pick is in.
With the 8th pick, JTG Doherty Racing picks Nick Ottinger.
No surprise there. My best available goes, and it is Nick Ottinger, pick number 8 to JTG Doherty Racing in 2019, the 13-time winner in the eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series. Career best finishes of 3rd in both 2013 and 14. Looking for a return to form, and this is a great pick for the 24-year-old.
Absolutely fantastic pick here for these guys, like you said, with probably the best driver of the ones that were at the time still left to go. So for JTG Doherty Racing, great pickup for them, and I think Nick Ottinger is going to be, I think, a great pickup for a team like that. You said coming into this, we're going to have Clint Boyer Racing on pick number 9 here in this first round. And this is where it starts getting a little bit murky, I think, Evan. You start getting towards the tail end of this top 10, in towards sort of this mid-pack. It starts getting really, really murky in terms of why you pick drivers for what reasons. You have a handful of really talented names out there. Nicholas Shelton, who we saw had some success last year. You think of Jarl Tien, we saw him be fast as well. Other drivers, Chris Overland, who's been in the championship for a while. Zack Novak, very, very good run as well. Jimmy Mullis. A lot of good names still left on this board as we approach the top 10. And, well, Clint Boyer Racing has their pick in.
With the 9th pick of the draft, Clint Boyer Racing selects Nicholas Shelton.
So the driver who picked up 1 win last season in his rookie campaign is headed to the Ford camp with Clint Boyer Racing. Nicholas Shelton goes 9th overall, and that means that through 9 picks in round 1, all of the top 9 finishers in last year's championship points have been selected. So while the order may have been shuffled up a little bit, the teams are pretty on track right now. The top 9 drivers go in the top 9.
Definitely think you're right about that. They definitely have all done their homework in terms of deciding how they're going to actually end up doing these picks. And, like I said, there's not been any crazy sort of upsets just yet. That's what I'm waiting for now as we get Roush Fenway Racing on the clock. Who's going to be that first team that steps out of line, maybe, so to speak? Maybe goes for a bit of a dark horse pick that they think they can work with. Well, I can tell you, Roush, they're pretty confident.
It is going to be a quick pick as Roush Fenway takes number 10.
With the 10th pick, Roush Fenway Racing selects Zack Novak.
First driver from outside of the top 10 in points last year gets selected. Zack Novak, who I had as my number 9, goes number 10, finished 12th in the points last year. He is selected by Roush Fenway Racing, and despite the fact that you could say only one win, he's got a win apiece, by the way, in every single season in 2017-18 2 career. He is the 2018 Youth NASCAR Ignite Series champion. I think that bodes huge for him, and a big reason why he ends up going in the top 10.
That's a lot of momentum, I think, coming out of 2018 for him. Just, you know, picking up that Ignite Series championship, getting the opportunities that's going to work for. I mean, we thought him be very, very good. Well, we get Richmond Raceway Esports on the clock and off of it immediately. Let's see who's going 11.
With the 11th pick of the draft, Richmond Raceway Esports selects Jimmy Mullis.
So it is Jimmy Mullis that goes 11th to Richmond Raceway Esports. They'll have another pick here very early in the second round in just a little bit, but he does go number 11, finished 11th in the 2018 standings with 1 win to his name and 4 top 5s. A career year for him. Not all that out of the bag for Richmond Raceway Esports as they look to kind of rebuild their team for 2019. A good pickup.
Going to be one of those things you see them probably really work for, especially like you said, they're getting a very, very quick second pick as we flip the board for the second round. So going second to last opening, and they're going to be going second in the second round as we see Renegades come out here for this final pick. Going to be really interesting to see where they go as well. And we've seen a lot of really confident picks. I haven't only one person has gotten a couple minutes in, or only one team, excuse me, has gotten a couple minutes in. Who's got this one?
With the 12th pick, Renegades picks Cory Vincent.
So Cory Vincent, the first driver to cross over to the other side of the board. Cory Vincent is selected by the Renegades, 12th overall. He was 6th place in the Pro Series, didn't make the cut to stay in the eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze Series last year, had to go back into the qualifier, 12th though in the power rankings, and Cory Vincent finds himself back in. That is the first major swing. I don't think it's that much of a gamble for the driver out of Louisville, but still, Cory Vincent, the first one at least on paper for last year to get picked up, and I think that team's got confidence that he'll turn it around.
You're absolutely right about that, and it was a very confident pick from Renegades. We saw a very, very small amount of time left on the clock as we were talking about. The board's going to flip for the second round, so as you see Renegades 12th and 13th picks. So if they were picking up Cory there to maybe build a little bit of a team around him, let's see who that teammate they have in mind and in store to be able to work with him, because they have their pick of the board for this second round.
Yeah, certainly if you're looking to build a team of 2, which is what all of these teams are going to end up with, Renegades going back-to-back at 12 and 13, the best opportunity. Here's what the draft board looked like coming into tonight. There go the top ones. So immediately, Christian Challinor stands out. Somebody like a Shearburn, a Schoenberg, and a Kerwin. Those drivers top the bottom left to right. In the power rankings, still on the board, in theory, would be your best available. Again, power ranking, it's the metric that we've been using to measure their past eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series results and stats. That's something that we're going to update weekly over the course of this entire 2019 season. And of course, the driver I rating, a combination of factors, one of which, how often they drive. Renegades really liking this back-to-back pick. They already got 12 for Cory Vincent. Who did they take at number 13?
With the 13th pick of the draft, Renegades selects Garrett Low.
So that is back-to-back picks for Renegades, 2 drivers who got top 6 finishes in the Pro Series this year to renew their qualification. It means that both of those drivers coming off of obviously a series that they would have liked to improve on for Cory Vincent, but for Garrett Low, 17-year-old, gets into the series for the first time. He's in the big show, and he's associated with a great team, and he's got a great veteran teammate.
Definitely a solid pickup, Garrett Low. We saw him be very good in the Ignite series as well, just wasn't able to quite close it out, but I'm just a little bit surprised. We still got some interesting names on this draft board, like the Brian Schoenberg, I think is a standout name, at least to myself. Phil Diaz as well. While Phil may not have the raw speed, he's someone who's brought a lot to some teams, and I know he works behind the scenes quite a bit in terms of really building the success of the teams he's run on. So as Richmond Raceway Esports gets on the clock, we'll likely see them pick another driver to try to sort of keep the kind of roster they had going from last season. So it'll be an interesting couple minutes to see as we take a look at that schedule once again, Evan. And talking about that schedule, we mentioned Talladega twice, 2 plate tracks, especially within that first half of the season, is going to be very, very interesting. But I'm really interested to see is that Charlotte Roval towards the end of the season, the penultimate round of the championship. I think it's the first time we've seen that. That's going to be a major curveball for all of these guys having a road course in that four race run to the championship.
And that Charlotte Roval will end the opening round of the playoffs, so that's certainly going to be exciting. Tossed in there with Darlington and Indy, of course, we end at Homestead. There are 3 winners in the series still left on the board. That includes one-time race winner Taylor Hurst, as well as 6-time career winner Brad Davies still available, and as well one-time race winner Dylan Duval, who is coming back over from requalifying through the Pro Series, having not finished inside of the top 20 in the standings last year, had to get top 20 in the qualifier Pro Series. He did so. So there are 3 race winners in the eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze Series still available and on the board, and we're starting to see as we get a little bit deeper into this second round, round 2, 14th pick overall for Richmond Raceway Esports, taking a little bit more time to think about it, getting ready for that Tuesday, February the 12th opener, live from Daytona International Speedway, right here, RaceSpot TV and the iRacing Esports Network.
Yeah, Richmond Raceway Esports really taking their time with this pick. I don't think we've seen anyone under the 2.5-minute zone at all during this first half or so of the draft. So a lot of thought being put in of who they actually want to pick up. It's going to be really, really, I've been saying it all day, it's been interesting to see what happens. The first time we've ever had this sort of format, Evan, and I think it's interesting for everyone of wherever these drivers have gone, as well as when we get the when we actually take a peek at who's going to be running under that free agent banner that might have a bit of a chip on their shoulder going into Daytona come February.
And you would think that the teams are trying to build a good driver combination with their 2 drivers. So Richmond Raceway Esports taking Mullis earlier in the opening round of this. They can't consult that driver to help out. The drivers are learning who they are being picked by as we learn. Right here on the iRacing Esports Network, you take a look at where we sit so far. Alfalla loses Conti. I think that was pretty much set in stone. The rest, you had Keegan Lahey, Zelensky, Busa, Clampett, Ottinger, Shelton, Novak, Mullis, and Vincent through round 1. And again, we flipped the board. So Garrett Low teaming up with Cory Vincent. We will see how long Richmond Raceway Esports is going to take to lock in. But in the first round, I don't think any team went past 1:30. We're almost 4 minutes deep into the 5-minute clock.
Yeah, they're about to get that 1-minute warning here in just a second. And like you said, still some big, like we've been saying, still some names on the board. Brad Davies, 6-time race winner. Is that going to be the deciding factor? They get their pick in right at the 1-minute mark.
The clock is down and into the red, but the pick is in. Richmond Raceway Esports for 14 overall.
With the 14th pick of the draft, Richmond Raceway Esports selects Malik Ray.
14th overall for the driver who finished the 2018 Pro Series in 14th with 1 win, is going to make his debut in the eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series this year, and it is going to be with Richmond Raceway Esports.
Definitely going to be interesting watching Malik work his way through in this championship. Like you said, 1 win in the 2018-19 Pro Series. So for him, that's got to be big. And wow, we just saw one of the longest picks of the night in Roush Fenway. They waste no time with the 15th pick overall.
With the 15th pick of the draft, Roush Fenway Racing selects Michael Guest.
Well, back into the drivers that competed last season, Roush Fenway Racing selects Michael Guest, 15th overall in the 2019 draft. The driver who netted 4 top 5s in his rookie campaign last season, finished 16th in the points and 17th in the power rankings. A good pickup for him as he gets selected.
Yeah, I think that's about what we expected. Michael Guest, I've seen him beat, wow, and 2 quick picks back-to-back. Even deep into this, Evan, these teams really are confident in their picks as Clint Boyer Racing makes their pick in under 30.
I think Richmond Raceway was taking so much time. All of these other teams were ready. Let's see the pick for Clint Boyer Racing.
With the 16th pick, Clint Boyer Racing chooses Kasey Kerwin.
It is Kasey Kerwin that is selected by Clint Boyer Racing. He goes 16th overall. The 15th place finisher in the points last season is going to be driving the Ford Fusion to start the season, and will end it in the Mustang. The driver to Matthews, North Carolina, 16th in the power rankings, lines up nice and perfect. Notably, this still leaves ahead of Kerwin and Guest, who go back-to-back, Sherburne, Schoenberg, Challinor, all finished higher than the drivers who have been picked already. They're still on the board, and another quick pick for 17 overall as JTG Doherty Racing has their pick in.
With the 17th pick in the draft, JTG Doherty Racing selects Christian Challinor.
So it is Christian Challinor, the 25-year-old, who is selected 17th by JTG Doherty Racing, the driver who finished 10th in the 2018 standings. That was not a career year for him, even bested that in 2017, but he goes 17th overall, maybe a little bit later than I would have expected. 3 top 5s last year.
Yeah, a little bit later on for sure for Christian Challinor. So, like you said, maybe a little bit late, but I think about where I think Christian would have gone, especially based on last season. He had some good top 5s, but I felt like he was struggling with consistency at some times. But I will say there's still a lot of picks that I'm a little bit surprised we haven't seen go just yet. I know Brian Schoenberg's one of them. I know that he ended the season 13th last year, but I don't think that really told the story of his championship overall. I mean, we saw him come away with 3 top 5s as well, same as Challinor, but it seemed like Brian was consistently in races and then getting into trouble that was taking him out of him. So for Brian Schoenberg, for him to not have been taken yet, I honestly had him going in the first round, so that's a bit of a surprise for me.
Burton Kligerman Esports is on the board. Not only Schoenberg, who finished 13th in the points, is still available. Chris Sherburne is still available, and we did have, as we mentioned, a couple of drivers coming in from the Pro Series. New drivers, Malik Ray, Garrett Low, returning driver Cory Vincent, Low P5, Vincent P6 in the Pro Series standings. That still leads your Pro Series champion Blake Reynolds on the board, as well as Cody Bias, Ashton Crowder, and Nathan Lyon, 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the Pro Series results. So there's certainly a lot of value picks on the board, and the pick is in. We will see who Burton Kligerman Esports selects for 18th overall.
With the 18th pick of the draft, Burton Kligerman Esports selects Ashton Crowder.
So one of the names we were just talking about, it is Ashton Crowder, who is selected by Burton Kligerman Esports, 18th overall. It is picked in the second round. He will be in the Toyota camp, making his eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze Series debut. 4 top 5s in the 2018-19 Pro Series. But how's that for a jump? 29th in the power rankings, and he ends up going 18th.
You know he's going to be ecstatic about that. To be have that low of a power ranking, even end up in the top 24, is going to be an honor, I think, for Ashton.
You see some of the names that are still there are Reynolds, Bias. You have to think, hey, there's 20 drivers returning to the series. There are 20 drivers coming in, some new, some returning from the Pro Series. There are still 6 drivers who finished top 20 in the main points last year on the board. And there are very quickly not going to be 6 picks left unless they go for all of these rest of them. There is going to be somebody who is able to qualify in that does not get selected. Williams Esports on the clock. They don't wait too long. The pick is in for 19 overall.
With the 19th pick, Williams Esports selects Brian Schoenberg.
Brian Schoenberg, 13th in the points, has been our quote-unquote best available for some time, finally picked up at number 19 by Williams Esports.
Yeah, it really is a surprise to me, you know, just following all of last year to see Brian go this late in this draft. Like I said, I had him going actually pretty early in my mock. I thought he could have gone as early as 10th. I really think Schoenberg is a very, very talented driver in this championship, and things are still rattling off quick as Joe Gibbs Racing gets their pick in within 30 seconds.
It is a quick pick for Joe Gibbs Racing. Let's see who they select at number 20 overall.
With the 20th pick, Joe Gibbs Racing selects Jake Nichols.
So how about that for a big surprise? It is Jake Nichols, who is selected by Joe Gibbs Racing, 20th overall, and relatively deep in round 2, the driver who finished 18th in the Pro Series to make his rookie campaign in 2019, 40 out of 40 on the power rankings. I know we've been talking about a lot of drivers who would expect they to be in. We still got guys in the low teens on the availability board. I don't think Jake Nichols came into this draft expecting to get picked, Randy, but he is going to be racing and with a fantastic team at JGR.
Talk about a shock for him. That's got to be absolute joy for him going to a team like Joe Gibbs Racing. You know, a complete surprise pick. Really the first curveball we've seen this draft. We've seen some drivers as like, maybe they could have gone a few spots higher or lower.
So far, we have 5 drivers who qualified in through the Pro Series that have been drafted at this point, with now 20 of the 24 picks selected. That also means that 5 drivers who made the top 20 in the series last year still available. Shearburn, Hurst, Lowe, Davies, Diaz on the board, and so is G2 Esports. Their pick is in as we take a look at number 21 overall.
With the 21st pick, G2 Esports selects Jarl Tien.
Jarl Tien going to be competing in the 2019 campaign as he returns to the eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series. Not a 2018 campaign that would have liked. It was 35th in the points. That is somewhat deceptive. 23rd in the power ranking. He should get drafted. He does. He only started 10 races. If G2 Esports can get a full calendar out of him, I think that's a great value pick as Junior Motorsports comes up next, and we will wait to see what they select.
Jarl Tien's a solid pick, though, I think, coming out of that group. Like you said, only started a handful of the races, so his championship result maybe not the highest and, you know, maybe not the most truthful telling, but we saw him have some very, very good runs, Evan, and he was very competitive throughout that championship when we saw him turn up. So I think for Jarl, I think even getting drafted, like you said, isn't really a big shocker.
We take a look to see who's still available. The Pro Series champion, Blake Reynolds, on the board. We already mentioned the 5 drivers who are still available on what I will call the left side of the grid, which is Shearburn, Hurst, Lowe, Davies, Diaz. Those are all drivers who competed last year. There are still 2 winners in this eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series on the board. One-time race winner Dylan Duval and one-time race winner Taylor Hurst still yet to be selected. There are only 3 picks left, and Junior Motorsports, who picked 3rd overall earlier this evening, has put in their pick.
With the 22nd pick of the draft, Junior Motorsports selects Brad Davies.
No surprise that Brad Davies is selected, but maybe it is a surprise that it comes this late. If he's a Junior Motorsports fan, he'll like that Chevy badge, and he is going to be happy about this. I mentioned the 2 one-time winners. Brad Davies hasn't quite found victory lane in a while. 3 wins a year in 2010 and 2011. It's been a little bit of up and down for him, a little bit of a return to form as well, Randy. Last year with a 19th place in the points. 6-time winner, though, the most left, and he finally gets selected at 22.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Not a surprise at all to see Brad Davies get drafted because, well, there's been some times he's had some rough seasons. He's one of the few drivers, I think maybe the only driver, who's really never missed a championship here. Started out in 2010, finished 2nd, 4th in 2011, and then he's not a single gap year for Brad Davies. Granted, like we said, his 6 wins came with Dale Jr. The team he just went to was actually running in the championship, so maybe a bit of friendship going back that long. But for Brad Davies, I think an overall solid pick, and we saw him show some good speed towards the end of last year as well.
Well, it's certainly exciting to have Junior Motorsports a part of the series. You mentioned Dale Jr. actually won the very first race ever in this eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series way back early in 2010. So Davies is going to be racing in his 10th season as we celebrate our 10th season of action, and a very fitting maybe home return to home per se for him as Davies does go number 22, the driver who has 234 career iRacing wins. Now it starts to get interesting. Flipside Tactics back on the board. They were the first esports team to select. They picked number 2 overall, Randy, and now really we're starting to see a mixed bag. They could go any of numerous directions with this selection.
I think you're right, and it's going to be interesting to see what a team that maybe isn't super hardcore into racing. I think for a lot of these NASCAR teams, they're going to know what to look for when you look down the stats, top 5s, top 10s, maybe get an idea of how drivers carry themselves. All these teams that are coming from the real NASCAR side of things, or even if they're not necessarily real NASCAR teams, if they have those sort of roots, they're going to know maybe what to look for in a driver. Some of these esports teams, maybe not so much. They may not have that same sort of knowledge of the motorsports. Flipside Tactics, they got pretty lucky with their early pick in the first round and had an easy one with Ryan Michaeluza. Here at pick 23, I think this is going to be one of the more interesting picks of the draft. We eventually see what it is and what they sort of philosophize for with bringing in someone to run with Luza.
And certainly with Luza, they looked at the numbers and they made that decision very quickly after we saw Alfalla come off the board. Best available I have is Chris Shearburn, who finished 14th in last year's standings. We're down to pick number 23, penultimate pick on this 2019 draft, and the pick is in for Flipside Tactics.
With the second to last in the 23rd pick, Flipside Tactics selects Timmy Hill.
And adding a little bit of flavor late in this draft, you want to talk about the difference between a NASCAR team and an esports team? Well, the NASCAR driver Timmy Hill, who has competed in all 3 of NASCAR's top national touring series, he is headed to Flipside Tactics, 27th in the power rankings, squeaks it in at number 23 and to make his 4th straight appearance in the eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing series.
Another surprising pick. He did have the power ranking at 27th, but maybe the biggest upset, I think, from Jake Nichols. So definitely interesting to see Timmy Hill, and that pretty much guarantees it here. A couple of the race winners that we still have on the board are not, one of them is guaranteed to not get drafted.
It is interesting because we talk about the power rankings. Jake Nichols was ranked 40th on the power rankings, finished 18th in the Pro Series. Timmy Hill almost didn't make a 4th straight appearance. He's been in this series 2016, 17, ran a very limited calendar last year and only made it in P20, the last driver to make it in, and he ends up on a team. And of course, it doesn't hurt that being drafted includes that $500 cash incentive. So it is Timmy Hill to Flipside Tactics, and now the Wood Brothers Racing, who chose number 1 in this draft. That pick, they were very certain of who they were going to get, and they got their man in Ray Alfalla. Very different now as they go for 24 to 24, trying to figure out who's available. I'm sure there's some drivers that they were eyeing that are no longer on the block, and maybe there's a driver that they didn't think would be available that is. But as you mentioned, race winners Dylan Duvall, Taylor Hurst, the only drivers left that are race winners. There's a couple of rookies still around, but there are 2 race winners on the block. Not both of them can go. Do either of them go as Wood Brothers starts to run this clock down?
I mean, there's still some very, very quality picks left, not even just the winners. I mean, talk about Phil Diaz. We've seen him not go anywhere. Yeah, I understand, Phil isn't one of those drivers that spend a lot of time in this championship in terms of, and you look at his performance, 19th in 2017, 20th this year in 2018. But Phil, he has been very, very important to what he actually brings to the teams that he's run on. Does a lot of strategy. He helps with the setup quite a bit. So there's maybe some intangibles that are there that are still on this board. There's probably a couple of other drivers that maybe fit under that as well. This last pick is going to be very, very interesting to see who's going to have a chip on their shoulder. There's a couple, I think, names that are probably at the head of the list. And with them having race wins, I'd expect them to have a very big 2018.
We will see which direction they want to go. They can go immediately for somebody with some race-winning experience. Do you partner maybe a driver that's been in this series a little bit longer with somebody like a Ray Alfalla? Have you had a chance to let him know who you selected, and is he helping you at all on this pick? So we'll see. The pick is in. The final pick in the 2019 draft is in. Let's see who the Wood Brothers select.
With the final and 24th pick, Wood Brothers Racing selects Chris Overland.
And it is going to be Chris Overland out of San Antonio, Texas, who slides in as the final pick, advances into the series once again for what is going to be a 5th and now 6th time through the Pro Series, having finished the Pro Series P12, 21 on the power rankings. The power rankings thinks he should have gone earlier, but he does make it in, and Overland, the final driver to make the cut.
And I think overall, not a huge surprising pick coming out. from Wood Brothers. Of course, Chris has a lot of experience running with Ray Alfalla. Of course, they spent a number of years as teammates. So for Chris, definitely maybe a bit later than he would have wanted, but he's running with a familiar name in Ray Alfalla. So the two old teammates, they pretty much sandwiched this draft, and there's a lot of interesting names and interesting choices that are in between them.
Yeah, we recap the entire look now at your 24 picks for this 2019 eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series draft. Alfalla teaming up with Chris Overland could easily be a dynamic duo. I know both drivers are going to be very happy about that one. You see round 1 on the left-hand side, round 2 on the right-hand side of your screen. We know who's in. Right there on your screen is $12,000 of bonuses because every single driver that was drafted this evening gets a $500 bonus. That'll certainly help as they look to get their 2019 kicked off. But you have to look on the flip side of things now, Randy. Our 12 teams have their 2 drivers. 24 drivers are assigned to a team. There are going to be 16 drivers for this 2019 campaign that will be free agents that are not immediately associated with the team here. And we'll see just how well the friends who are teammates certainly work together, but if you got a buddy now in a different organization, maybe even in a different manufacturer, that is certainly going to be fun. Let's take another look at the calendar and the schedule for 2019. You mentioned Daytona. We are less than 2 weeks away from the regular season opener, February the 12th at Daytona International Speedway. That race and all of these races going to be broadcast live right here on the iRacing Esports Network, 9 o'clock Eastern Time on Tuesdays. Daytona, Las Vegas, Auto Club. Pretty tame start to the season, but I did make the point earlier on when we took a look briefly in between a couple of picks that new tracks, Talladega on the schedule, Bristol for the first time since 2011, and Kentucky. Kentucky, a 1.5 miler, you can slot it in there. I think it pretty much takes care of Atlanta that comes out, but there is no ISM Raceway, no New Hampshire, and no Dover, so a lot of the short tracks fall to the side, and of course I think maybe the personal favorite, that Charlotte Roval in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that I mean, it's going to be the personal favorite of some, maybe not the favorite of others. And actually, when you talk about some of these picks, you look at that number 5 pick in Bobby Zielinski. Bobby, one of the races he won last year, absolutely dominated the race at Sonoma. You think about the fact that there's now a second road course tossed into the mix, especially at such a crucial time as the final race in the playoffs. I think Bobby Zielinski, as that 5th pick, late in this season, he might have a very good ace up his sleeve, for that. So it's going to be a fun year to watch, and I'm ready to watch iRacing give away some 6-figure money in 2019.
Celebrating our 10th season, it may be very fitting that the prize pool goes up tenfold from last season. No longer are we fighting for $10,000. Keep in mind that we just gave away $500 to all of the drivers who were competing and got drafted in this draft, so that's already $12,000, and the season hasn't even gotten underway, but it is a $100,000 plus prize pool. You are not going to want to miss any of the action as we get set to go racing in 2019. That does it for us here, though, this evening. That is a look at your 2019 eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series draft. 24 drivers now affiliated with all new teams for the first time ever, and there are some drivers now who don't get the cash bonus and don't get a team logo on their car. I think that are going to be looking to make a point coming up in just less than 2 weeks' time. So on behalf of our entire team at RaceSpot TV and the iRacing Esports Network, I want to thank all of you for joining us. Congratulations to all of the drivers who have been selected in the draft, and we will see you from Daytona, 9 o'clock Eastern Time on Tuesday, February the 12th, as we go racing for the 2019 eNASCAR PEAK Antifreeze iRacing Series.